Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here with my review of Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 7, Unification 3. The episode opens with an emotional log entry from Michael. She laments that after her rogue mission in the previous episode had earned her a demotion from first officer, she's beginning to feel like Discovery is no longer the home it was when she went through the wormhole. She finds solace in Book, who is subtly encouraging her to leave the ship and travel the stars with him. But Michael decides to continue her investigation from aboard Discovery and enlists Tilly to help her. Together, they're able to confirm Michael's suspicion that several ships destroyed in the burn did not all combust at the exact same time, meaning that there must be an origin point, and that what could help them further in their investigation and further understand what happened is all the data on a classified project called SB-19, which had spread sensors across subspace at the time of the burn. Michael and Saru take this information to the Admiral, who is stunned by the revelation. He explains that SB-19 was a project from the planet Navarre, previously known as Vulcan, which changed its name after the unification of Vulcans and Romulans finally happening. Years after Spock's efforts covered in the events of TNG's Unification two-parter, the United People looked at creating alternate methods of faster-than-light travel and invented a system to transport ships in an instant, but warned it was too unstable. The Federation persisted with SB-19 despite their warnings, making Navarre believe they had caused the burn. As a result, the planet lost faith in Starfleet and pulled out of the Federation. Despite Michael and Saru both insisting that she not represent the Federation, Vance tasks them with traveling to Navarre with this new information to try to convince them to rejoin Starfleet. Meanwhile, Saru pulls Tilly aside, offering to make her his number one. The ensign is stunned, but the captain is confident that despite her rank, her growth and dedication to Starfleet makes her a prime candidate for command. As Tilly considers the offer, Discovery jumps to Navarre, where they're greeted coldly by President Terina. Michael is immediately denied her request for the data and turned away. But she jumps in with her Vulcan knowledge, invoking Takal Naket, a philosophical forum where she must defend her theory in front of the Science Institute. Michael is given an advocate, in this case a representative from the Qowat Milat, a group of warrior nuns previously seen in Star Trek Picard that shroud themselves in absolute candor. And the advocate's literal shroud gets dropped to reveal a surprising face, Michael's mother, Gabrielle Burnham. The time-traveling Gabrielle reveals that she never made it to the intended target of Terralisium, instead being taken in by the Qowat Milat. She notices her daughter seems to be between places, and Michael tells her about her recent feelings of not fitting in. Elsewhere, Saru and Terina tour the ship as he gives her the soft pitch on rejoining the Federation, which she is dubious about doing. Romulans, Vulcans, and crew members alike gather for the Takal Naket as Michael faces a tribunal of a Romulan elder, a Vulcan purist, and a Romulo-Vulcan attempting to forge a new path. The Vulcan immediately dismisses Michael's claim, not convinced of her motives. After some tense exchanges between Michael, her mom, and the trio, resulting in an impasse, Michael resolves the tension by withdrawing her request, invoking her brother's name and saying she cannot see a planet break apart due to her actions. Later, her mother reveals that despite the tribunal not agreeing, one person did see appeal in her plea, Terina. The Navarre president has allowed her access to SB-19. Subsequently, Tilly enters the engine room to find the entire bridge crew assembled. Stamets had told everyone about her having been offered the position of number one, and they all offer their encouragement for her to take the position. Even Michael offers her support for the ensign to fill her vacancy, which Tilly does. Saru sends Terina off as she thanks him for his support and reveals she may even consider rejoining the Federation in time. Meanwhile, Michael and Book come back together, and it's clear she has a renewed sense of purpose, saying she belongs with her crew. So that's a general synopsis of the plot. Let me give you my thoughts, on the episode. During her conversation with Book, Michael talks about how she's someone new, since jumping to the future and spending a year as a courier. And I'm thinking, someone new? No, no, you've always been this person who goes around doing whatever the hell they want and, skirting authority and ignoring authority. So, what's with this someone new thing? Book even points out to her that she has a messianic complex. And he didn't know her before, but we do. we did. So it, she's always had this. She's always had this, and it kills me that the writers are being I want to say self-referential in this way, because they're the ones who gave her the Messiah complex. And it's like, so if they know that she has a Messiah complex and that she acts this way, and now they're telling us this, they know that we know. So how do they not know that that's not how Star Trek works? Like, they know this situation exists. How do they at the same time not realize that they shouldn't be doing it? That it doesn't make any sense. I've said in the past with regard to this issue that, yeah, Spock and Kirk and Picard and other officers, Worf, Kira, if I'm remembering correctly, would defy their COs, defy the chain of command, and go off on rogue missions or do things in a way they weren't supposed to do them. But it wasn't every 5 seconds. It was every now and then. It wasn't their modus operandi, 24/7, 365. But it is with Michael, and that's why it's ridiculous. So in addition to having been number one, Commander Burnham, Michael, was the chief science officer and still is the chief science officer aboard Discovery. Yet when she's talking to Tilly about trying to find the source of the burn by triangulating, the various positions of ships that exploded at quote unquote different times, and we'll get to that in a minute, Tilly has to remind her that that would only work in 2D space. It's not going to work, in a 2D space, like on a map that has length and width, right? It's not going to work in a 3D space, like space. You can't. It's not going to work. Why does she not know that? She's the chief science officer of a Federation ship, a Starfleet ship. How does she not know this? Now, about the time thing, they want us to believe in this episode that millionths of a millisecond are not the same time. Millionths of a millisecond differences are not the same time. Like, if something happens 2 millionths of a millisecond after something else, they happened at different times. They didn't happen at the same time. Really? Doesn't everything that happens at the same time in real life happen something like a millionth of a millisecond? Like no two things that happen at the same time happen at the same millionth of a millisecond. Like, what? And if I'm not mistaken, even during the tribunal, the Vulcans and the Romulans are like, what? What do you mean it's not the same time? Because they're millionths of a millisecond apart. They even say to her, I think, that the measurement could be off because the chronometers on the various ships that made the recordings in the black boxes of what took place might not have been in complete sync. So, down to that level. 10 minutes apart, okay, now we're talking about something that didn't happen at the same time. So apparently unification ended up happening, and Romulans and Vulcans now coexist on the same world or worlds. They probably don't all live on one planet, but Vulcan was renamed to Navarre, which I think totally makes sense. I don't think you can call a planet Vulcan if there are, at least 2 different species living there. You know what I'm saying? I don't think you could call, that'd be like calling Earth Humanus. If there were humans and Vulcans and others living here, you wouldn't that wouldn't be right, right? So it makes sense that they changed the name. The writers like got something right there. The crazy thing is that it would seem that when this occurred, the Romulans were absorbed into the Federation, right? Because Vulcan was in the Federation, was a founding world of the Federation. So what is the excuse now for the Federation and Starfleet not knowing about, the Romulan method of faster than light travel, which was artificial quantum singularities? How did they not know this? How has it not come up at all yet, now that we're in fact dealing with the Romulans? It's just bizarre. It's bizarre. It's like the elephant in the room that we all know is there, but the writers seem not to know is there. It's maddening. It really is. At least they eventually worked a line into Star Trek which explained that, the transwarp drive on the Excelsior ended up not working. That was lame, but at least they said that line. They haven't even addressed this quantum singularity thing. It's just absurd. It's completely absurd. And you have to wonder, do the writers still not know about it after the fans have probably been telling them about it since this whole plot line came around? Or do they know about it and they're thinking, okay, we totally can't bring it up now because no matter what we say about it, we're going to look like morons. So we're just going to try to pretend that it didn't exist and hope the fans who are talking about it just shut up. And, extend their suspension of disbelief to account for this thing. It's bad. It's why the show is bad. The writers don't know Star Trek, and what they do know about, they often don't care about. It's really bad. I don't know why the Admiral thinks it's such a great idea to send Michael Burnham to Navarre to find out about this secret project thing, or to try to get the information for this project. He believes that she's Spock's sister, but he has no confirmation. She was scrubbed from the databanks, scrubbed from the computers, scrubbed from Starfleet and Federation records. Why does he think it's such a great idea to send her to Vulcan? Like they're just going to automatically believe who she is. It doesn't make any sense. Why would they believe it? They believe it, but they don't even question it at all. They just take it, take his word for it, take her word for it. I find that to be extremely implausible. But of course, this whole show centers on Michael Burnham. So they have to go that route, right? They have to do that. They have to make it about her. So they have to use her as the inroad, and they just have to write it in that they believe her. In one really cool moment, they did show a holoprojection of Ambassador Spock, or Rogue Spock, I guess he was at the time that he was delivering the lines that they showed. It was from Unification, where he's, talking to, I guess, Picard about his mission to reunite Romulus and Vulcan. So that was really cool. The balls to the wall crazy thing about this episode is the whole thing with Tilly, where Saru goes to her and says, I want you to be my number one. I don't even know what to say about it because it's so ridiculous. I like the Tilly character. I have never thought that she was Starfleet material at all. But, none of these characters seem to be at this point. Some of them started out, seeming to be fit to be Starfleet officers when she didn't. None of them really do. They're all just overly familiar with each other. They don't have any sense of, uniformed officer type decorum at all. But she's the biggest offender, and she's an ensign, and he wanted to make her first officer. Now, first officer doesn't have to be, a commander. They can be a lieutenant. They can be an ensign. There's no restriction against it in Starfleet regulations, as far as I'm aware, in the Star Trek lore up to this point. So that's fine, but she's not qualified. And even if she were qualified, No one's going to take her seriously because she's a big goof, number one, and because everybody outranks her. And Stamets even points this out. Taking orders from you is going to be weird. Yeah, because she's way below you in rank, and she's younger than you by quite a bit. It would be the equivalent of them having made Wesley first officer on the Enterprise or any ship when he graduated the academy. Giving him a position at ops was insane. So this is the same thing. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. And we're going to have to see how it goes. She did do a good job when she played Captain Killy or Killy Tilly or whatever it was in the Mirror Universe episodes in the first season. I thought she did pull it off really well. You know, she played that, you know, she played, you know, Captain pretty well. Well, I should say she played Tilly playing Captain pretty well. I thought she pulled it off. So somewhere down in there, there's a part of her that's suited for command, but she's nowhere near that yet. And I don't think she should be first officer. Now, he did say interim. He did say interim, so maybe that's something. But she's not even a bridge officer. Like, it just, it doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. The other crazy thing is, he could have promoted her to lieutenant at least. You know, Lieutenant JG, junior grade, if he wanted to, a field promotion. Or he could have asked the admiral to promote her. Doesn't even do that. She's still at ensign. Like, what? I don't know. I don't know. The writers are not approaching the writing of these episodes from a standpoint of let's do cool stuff that makes sense. They're writing it from a standpoint of let's do stuff that makes us feel cool, and that, you know, punches up the characters that we like writing for, as opposed to what makes sense, which would have been putting one of the lesser known characters in that position. I don't know. We're going to have to see how it goes. We don't have a choice if we're going to keep watching it, right? At one point, Michael actually says the word fascinating, you know, like Spock used to say. So there was a quick little Easter egg that was cool. Another interesting thing that I noted was that the Vulcans and Romulans were able to transport up to the Discovery while in motion. They landed on the transporter pad moving. They were walking forward and still forming, which is kind of interesting. I guess that can happen now. Haven't seen that before. Although, Picard, they kind of did that, right? They had those transporters like on the quad at Starfleet Academy, and people were walking and they would materialize and keep walking. I'd have to go back and look. But it seemed like there was a split second of them materializing before they kept walking. And in this, they were walking and still materializing. It was kind of weird. But anyway, that's something that I noticed. Another kooky thing was that at some point during the, you know, big meeting with the Romulans and the Vulcans, somebody says, "This is not the way," which I thought was funny because, you know, they were always saying this is the way on The Mandalorian. So, yeah, that was kind of funny. At some point, one of the Romulans or Vulcans says to Michael and, you know, Saru, I think, that Spock left the Federation behind to go on his mission of uniting Vulcan and Romulan. Or maybe they were talking about when he tried to save Romulus from, you know, exploding. But I don't think he ever left the Federation behind when he did those things. He was working with the best interests of all of the people of the Federation when he did those things, even the Romulan thing, you know, the trying to save a Romulan, the Romulan people. So I didn't think that was a fair thing for them to say. At the end of this whole tense negotiating session between Michael and the representatives from Navarre, she actually puts herself second She actually bows out of the situation and withdraws her request and puts her own agenda second to, what makes the most sense for the situation, which is to not cause the unification of the Romulans and the Vulcans to break up because they couldn't agree on providing her the information and all that stuff. So, I mean, wow, they finally got one right for her. She finally decided to back off instead of powering through. Well, whatever the fallout is. So we'll have to see if she continues this trend of not being an idiot in the future. I suppose it's good that she ended up getting the information she wanted in the end, but I found the reason why the Vulcan president just gave it to her to be a little stupid. Her mother tells her, the Vulcan president decided that you were worthy of getting the information and that, your head and heart are in the right place on this and she's going to trust you. Really? Because Vulcans just have a long history of considering people who have emotional outbursts and emotional, agendas and who are, out to pursue something while filled with, emotional angst about it, as reliable people who are in their right mind that should be trusted with delicate, information and missions. That's just so replete throughout Vulcan history. Not. So they should have come up with some other reason for them to have ended up giving her the information. But of course, we're dealing with the laziest writers on the planet with this show. So they said, what you would say about someone in the position of the Vulcan president if they weren't Vulcan. A human president would give that reason. A Klingon president might give that reason. A Romulan president might give that reason. An Andorian president might give that reason. A Vulcan president would not have that reason. That would not be the reasoning behind it. Given that Michael was so emotional and, irrational and so forth in their eyes, Again, there was a ton of crying in this episode, and I get it. I've shed many a tear watching Star Trek in the past because it gets very emotional, but you don't see the characters literally sobbing in Star Trek. And when you do, it's rare. Spock has a complete breakdown in, one episode. Picard has a breakdown in Generations, but it wasn't every 5 minutes like it is on shows like, Gossip Girls or One Tree Hill or 90210 or Melrose Place or This Is Us. This is Star Trek, not This Is Us. Stop it with the crying. These are Starfleet officers. They're not college kids. This is not The Big Chill. It's terrible. They even showed the Vulcan president crack a tiny smile. No! Vulcans don't do that. And if they do, because they evolved in the 900 years that are missing from Star Trek history now, then they should explain it. But no, she cracks a little bit of a smile. That's okay. They made Sarek do it 900 years before. It's just absurd. These writers all need to go to writing school. That's all. Writing school and Star Trek lore school, which they supposedly already did during season 1, during the break, but it didn't take. So they need to do it again. Anyway, we're halfway through the third season now. So only the back half is left. We're going to have to see how this goes. I continue to have problems with CBS All Access. I don't know, I'm starting to think it might be my smart TV because my smart TV seems to crash now during CBS. Also, when I try to watch Disney Plus, and the other day it was doing it with Hulu as well. So I don't know. Maybe it's my smart TV, but I've always had a problem with CBS All Access before I even had my smart TV. I literally, and I still do on my phone. I literally, well, I don't know if it's my phone. Here's what happens. I now, if I don't want any stuttering during the episode, I have to watch it on my phone. You know, if I don't want any buffering or stuttering or whatever. So because my phone is small, I cast it to my TV. And as soon as a commercial comes on, because I'm cheap, I'm not paying for the no ads version. A few seconds of the ad will play and then it stalls. It buffers, it stops. I have to go to my phone, cancel the cast, the ads play, the show comes back, and then I resume the cast and it's fine. But when it jumps from the show to the ads during the cast, it stutters. I'm gonna have to call them again and see what they think because it's maddening. But just today, when I tried to watch The Mandalorian, it stuttered during that as well, and I had to cast it from my phone. Fortunately, there are no ads, so it just played straight through. But like, I don't know what's going on. Maybe I have to call my TV company as well. But I don't know. Maybe let me know in the comments, or you can email me. Let's put the email up. You can send me a tweet. You know, let me know if you have problems with CBS All Access, because I totally do. This goes back to when I was using it on my Xbox because I didn't have a smart TV. So I don't know. I'd be curious to know if you guys had any problems. Also, I'm curious to know your thoughts on the episode. I'm curious to know your thoughts on my thoughts on the episode. You know, do all that. You can hit me up on Facebook. I'm under Barry P. Cook, and I'm in Providence, Rhode Island. I'm going to get out of here. As I always say, peace and long life.